you. So we welcome Stu Pender, who is a guitarist, ukulele person, music producer, and songwriter. He hails from the Chicagoland area, and we're really grateful to have him not only on our roster, but willing to make a presentation of 3 series, same time, same station for the next 3 Tuesday nights. So tonight is episode 1. I think it's music theory for songwriting.
Yeah.
Take it away, Stu.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, really happy to be here. Um, we kind of conceived of this series about a month ago, and it's something that's kind of close to my heart because a lot of times in music lessons, we're learning to play other people's music, and really the times that I've seen, the really biggest spark with students is when they get to write their own music, and it's true for myself too. And one of the kind of biggest hurdles in getting there sometimes is just like knowing. I find to be knowing a little bit of music theory. I might be biased. I studied at a jazz conservatory, and have kind of since worked with a lot of songwriters as a performing artist and recording artist. So thought maybe, let's dive into some music theory that's kind of approachable, that's not too much, and just kind of the right amount for getting started songwriting. I've got a little document here that I will be. I think I'll need to be enabled to screen share.
Now you can.
Oh, cool. Thanks. So it all kind of starts with scales, which we can think of as families of notes, and we all know these. We've all heard them. We're all super familiar, but don't always know where they come from. So I brought a little slide here. We can kind of explore just like what is sound, what is frequency, what is pitch, notes. What is a note? This is the slide lets us, we can do this with our voice too. We can slide up from one pitch to another. And there's kind of an infinity of notes along that string, which I've chosen to represent with a circle because we go from, one note, and then we reach it again, actually, eventually. Just a higher version of it. So the circle works nicely, at least to me. And in Western music, we've kind of divided this up into 12 notes, 12 kind of equal places along that line. And that's where we get, the frets on the guitar. That's where we get the keys on the piano, just one after the other. And I've kind of actually made them the white and black keys on the piano here. So we'll get more into that as we go along. So of course, we've started to, take these 12 notes and make what are called scales out of them. And the kind of most primal, basic of them is the minor pentatonic. This is found in cultures all over the world. And you kind of hear a little rock and roll in there too. And so what it is it's a structure. We have 1, 2, 3 spaces, another 2, another 2, 1, 2, 3, another 2. So you could take this structure and you could start at any note, and it's going to make a minor pentatonic from that scale. So getting a little more complex, then we have the major scale. And this is the foundation of all Western music. And this has the structure. And I think this is where maybe the circle is helpful to see this, is you can kind of move, the structure is, it's movable. if it was an app or a physical thing, you could maybe move the yellow dots to your key of choice. So we have whole, whole. A whole step means 2, and a half step means 1. Skip along the line here. On the piano, that would be 1 key, and on the guitar, it would be 1 or 2 frets. So we have whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And so this is what we're going to be using today, and it sounds like this. And so this is our major scale, and I don't want to say all music, but I would say a huge majority of everything we listen to is written around this scale, which means there's so much to excavate from it. So one way we can do that is we can build chords from our scale. And so if we kind of lay it out here, we have, actually I should start here. So we're looking at, this will be a good place to start. So if we're looking at C major, for example, we've just taken now our whole, half, whole, half structure, started at C. We can do what's called building triads. A triad is 3 notes, and you're always just skipping one to get to the next. So we have C, skip 1, E, skip 1, G, C, E, G. So that's a pretty familiar sound, and we can build a triad off of any note of this scale. So we have 7 notes in our scale, and so we can build C, E, G. We can build one off D, F, and A. We can build one off of E, G, and B. And so as we go up this scale, we are, well, and let me just stop and say also, next week we'll be putting this on the instrument. This is just more for an understanding. So we can kind of go off of each note and build a triad. So we get basically 7 chords out of this scale. And so this is kind of the meat and potatoes of like, what do I write with? Well, you can start by choosing a key. And now we have 7 chords that's kind of our color palette right now. And you can really just be free with it. It's a lot of fun. You can also change the key too. So we're doing that in C major. I'm going to provide a few websites that help us, and I've got a cheat sheet here too that I'm going to provide. It's a PDF, and it's got all 12 keys and kind of the here's G major now. So we start on G with the 1 chord. So sometimes, choosing a key can be your first step in writing a song. So it's helpful to have this sheet. You can go through, you can kind of go through these keys and get familiar with what these notes are. The key centers, they come, it's probably best explained going into a deep dive on the circle of fifths, is what it's called, which explains some of the intricacies with sharps and flats. But for our purposes today, we want to understand that we have a scale, it's a structure, it's movable to any key, and we can build triads, every other note, 3 notes. And that's kind of the idea here. Um, we can also go a lot further than that. So here it's laid out in a straight line. 1 chord, 2 chord, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And this is basically, okay, what if we kept skipping a note, through it, and so we have our third for the 1 chord, we have 1 major third, perfect fifth. And then if we keep going after that, we have what's called a 7th. And in this case, so each one's going to have a different quality. And so I've kind of given you the cheat sheet here as to what kind of 7th. And so we have, a major 7th, a major 2nd, a perfect 4th, and a major 6th. So that kind of sounds like this. If you're in C major, it might be like. So we're stacking notes in harmony. And so we're going to take this now, and we're going to put it into a song. So I've kind of, what I like to do is use, just like really common usable tools. A lot of people have the GarageBand app for iOS. I really like that. I think it's like $5. There's also a website that I found that will kind of look at both. And so let's take a look at, I'm going to share my screen. So here we've got, okay, I'll rewind actually. So I've got the GarageBand app open here in this video. I might kind of just scroll it instead of playing it. And one of the really nice things you can do is you can make a smart piano that before we learn how to kind of really put these on our instrument, we can still experiment around with them. So we click on Smart Piano right here. And it'll give you some suggested chords. Since we have the cheat sheet PDF, I'm going to suggest that we go up here to settings up here, and we'll be able to put in our own chords. Theirs are cool too, but I think we'll find some interesting stuff if we kind of use the major scale. So here I am recording a video, putting in the chords of C major. So, we have. And if I remember correctly, I'm putting in one extra here at the end, which is going to be F minor. Sometimes this is kind of a fun one. A lot of my favorite songs have 1 or 2 chords that are out of key. So we talked about how, how much harmony, how many chords you can get out of just the major scale. It's immense. And then, then we start actually pulling some chords from other keys. And oftentimes I find some of the best songs have some of them have a lot of chords out of the key, quite frankly, but some of my favorite ones have, 1 or 2 that really pull you out and bring you back in. And it's like just enough. And one of those great ones is the minor 4 chord. So in this case, as we see, C, D, E, F, in the scale, that F, we would just make it minor. And also, I just wanted to mention, GarageBand does, you can see, you can choose the note, the chord, you can choose the quality. So in our major scale, we had major, minor, and diminished chords. And we can choose, well, let's see if maybe we'll wait till I scroll to it, but we can choose, sixth, we can choose the 9th, the 11th, the 13th. So those kind of upper chord tones that we talked about. So that's kind of a nice thing. You can kind of experiment with that as as you like. Using that cheat sheet, it'll say, okay, maybe we'll try this one. The one chord, or a lot of times the 2 chord with like a minor 9. Really nice. So you can kind of use that sheet to know, okay, what's the right tone to what's the right color tone to put on that. And GarageBand has a really nice interface to just kind of try those out. And so the other thing that it has is you can choose the bass note. This is a really interesting thing because you can choose none, and that's a really good option. You can also choose, if you're just getting started with this, you can choose, maybe try another note from the scale. There's a lot of different ways. When we put a different note on, so say we have a C major triad. Sometimes we change the bass note that is supporting it. In this case, I'm just walking down the scale. C, B, A, G, F. I like that. E. I'm just walking right down the scale. And so these are called slash chords. And they don't always have to be, the bass notes don't always have to be in the scale. But, here's that's one that's not in the scale. So you can experiment around with them, but with the scale sheet, you always know that you have kind of a safe note to go back to, if you want to try that out. So, and I often find stepwise motion works really well with slash chords. So that might be more than you're asking for, but it's a really fun thing to try out. So what do we have? We have the 7 chords of the major scale that we can put in here. We have, a few out of key chords, like the minor 4 we talked about. And we have slash chords, which is kind of putting a note from the scale or elsewhere in the bass to give it a slightly different color. And so, once you have your palette in here, really, your chord palette, your note palette, your melody palette is the scale itself. And so this is, I think, in my opinion, where the fun begins is, on the GarageBand app, you just kind of touch your finger on the chord you want. And even there's, different, what they call inversions. And you can play through them all. It's, we're basically bringing the lowest note up an octave is the really quick explanation of an inversion. And so you can play through these and, try to let your imagination go. Use the major scale that we have here, that we chose. Find a melody and find some chords that support it. One of the really interesting things about this, to me at least, is how the same melody can just totally change its character with a different chord underneath it. And I'll just make an example up right now. So here's just something out of the C major scale. And you might just want to sit with another chord. How does so here I went to A minor. This is the sixth chord. This is A minor. The sixth chord is a really important one. We call it the relative minor. So C is a kind of major one chord. A is our relative minor. It's got a kind of sadder twist to it, maybe. I always kind of try to find an emotional quality in these sometimes, especially if you don't want to dive super deep into the theory. It can be really helpful for me to recognize the sixth chord by like the kind of like emotional quality that it pulls out, especially of the melody. And then we have, here's F. Not quite resolved, It's also a major chord, though. Here's G. Some of these are a little tricky to play with the fingerings on the guitar, but when you have the GarageBand app, you can just kind of press the chord you want and sing along with it, keep your melody. And sometimes you'll find like sitting on one chord, you'll find a different quality, but you'll also find that switching the chords over time and building what's called a chord progression is going to kind of start to tell a story. You get like a little bit of an emotional arc going. And so that is what I would encourage you to take away from this week is, record yourself doing this, record some voice memos, record, and just see what comes up, play with it, don't, you know, don't get too caught up in the theory. It's I was always told in jazz conservatory, you learn the theory to forget about it. So get those chords in there, find a melody and see where it takes you. And maybe next week we can check in with some of the things that were come up with during the session, during the week. We could maybe find a way to email them to Tunelark. And I'll certainly bring in my own. So, yeah, maybe I could open the floor for any questions. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, we haven't gotten any questions popping up yet.
Oh, cool.
It may be time for people to just have some opportunities to experiment this week. Do you
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about what you're going to be doing next week? We have just enough time for you to do a
Yes.
little about that.
So next week we're going to be putting it on the instrument, specifically guitar and ukulele. Though, we can do this on any instrument, and I'll bring ways that we can do that. But on the guitar, it comes from finding these nice, the study of the triad on the guitar is kind of one that for me really opened up the guitar a lot. And so we'll be looking at some triad inversions, and just like simple open chords, and using a capo to move keys. So it'll be a little less on the app and getting our hands going. So yeah.
Yeah, so we need to encourage everybody to bring their instrument or something to be playing around with while they do this next week. That's great. I really like the way that you have taken something that can be very complicated, but try to remember that it's in its simplest form, it can be moved around, which is part of where it begins to feel complicated. So thanks for the introduction for music theory for songwriters. And I hope others that are seeing us now and more will join next week as we do number 2 in the series.
Awesome. Looking
Great.
forward.
Thanks, Stu. Do you want to play us out?
Yeah, sure. 4 chord. Thanks for listening, everybody, and
A
yeah, hope.
perfect ending. Thank you so much, Stu.
Yeah,
See
my
everybody
pleasure.
later.